By Richard Goldstein. New York Times, January 15, 2019. New York. Mel Stottlemyre, the New York Yankees pitching ace in their lean years of the late 1960s and early 70s and later the longtime pitching coach for New York Mets and Yankees teams that won the World Series, died Sunday in a Seattle hospital. He was 77. His wife, Jean Stottlemyre, said the cause was complications of multiple myeloma, a type of blood cancer for which he had been treated for many years. At his death he also had the flu and pneumonia, she said. Mr. Stottlemyre, who grew up in Washington state, lived in the Seattle area. Arriving at Yankee Stadium in August 1964, Mr. Stottlemyre posted a 9-3 record while helping the Yankees win a fifth straight pennant. He then faced Bob Gibson, the St. Louis Cardinals' future Hall of Fame pitcher, 3 times in the World Series. The Yankees were beaten by the Cardinals in 7 games, but Mr. Stottlemyre became an anchor of their pitching staff. In his 11 seasons with the Yankees, a long stretch of largely lean years after decades of dominance, he was one of their few bright spots. A right-hander featuring a superb sinker, he was a 5-time All-Star and a 3-time 20-game winner. Get Fast Forward in your inbox, a look at the news and events shaping the day ahead, delivered every weekday. Thank you for signing up. Sign up for more newsletters here. Mr. Stottlemyre coached the Mets pitchers for 10 seasons, including their 1986 World Series championship year, and the Yankees pitchers for another 10, during which he won 4 World Series championship rings. He was being treated for multiple myeloma, which affects plasma cells, for much of his time as the Yankees pitching coach. Mr. Stottlemyre was the quiet type, but even as a rookie pitcher he possessed uncommon poise. Here's a 21-year-old kid nobody knew coming out of nowhere with this great arm and super control who has all the confidence, not a big head, mind you, but its quiet self-assurance, of a Whitey Ford, his teammate Tom Tresh said in the Oral History, Bombers, 2002, by Richard Lally. Years later, Mr. Stottlemyre was admired by the pitchers he coached for his optimism and his ability to relate to them. The Yankees' David Cohn once said that Mr. Stottlemyre anticipated how pitchers liked to be treated. Mr. Stottlemyre, in turn, said he had benefited from talking with his sons Todd and Mel Jr., both of whom pitched in the major leagues. It's like he never got older, Cohn said of Mr. Stottlemyre. When you're struggling, he's always there for you, relief pitcher Mariano Rivera told the New Jersey newspaper The Record in October 1998, after the Yankees defeated the San Diego Padres to begin their string of 3 straight World Series titles. Dwight Gooden remembered how Mr. Stottlemyre came to the mound and steadied him when he was 2 outs away from a no-hitter against the Seattle Mariners at Yankee Stadium in May 1996. Gooden had walked 2 batters and thrown a wild pitch to Jay Buhner, putting runners on second and third with the Yankees leading 2-0. There's something about his demeanor, so trusting, so trustworthy, that makes you want to tell him the truth, Gooden said in his memoir, Heat, 1999, written with Bob Klapisch. Mr. Stottlemyre's fellow coach Don Zimmer recalled that after Mr. Stottlemyre revealed he had multiple myeloma in April 2000, he remained strong and steady while coaching the Yankees pitchers, even as he received chemotherapy. He was a rock, Zimmer said in Zim, A Baseball Life, 2001, written with Bill Madden. Melvin Leon Stottlemyre was born on November 13, 1941, in Hazleton, Mo, and grew up in Mabington, Wash, the son of a construction worker. He was signed by the Yankees organization in 1961. When Mr. Stottlemyre joined the Yankees, Ford, the Hall of Fame left-hander, became his mentor. When Ford hurt his shoulder pitching in the 1964 World Series opener, the Yankees rested much of their hopes on Mr. Stottlemyre. He beat Gibson in Game 2, pitched to a no decision in Game 5, and was the loser in Game 7. The Yankees never returned to the World Series during Mr. Stottlemyre's playing career, but he became one of the American League's leading pitchers. He had a 20-9 record in 1965, when he led the AL in complete games, with 18, and innings pitched with 291. The Yankees were beginning to fade by then, finishing 6th in what was then a 10-team league. Mel Stottlemyre won 12 games and lost 20 in 1966 when they finished last for the first time since 1912. But he rebounded to go 21-12 in 1968 and 20-14 in 1969. In June 1974, while pitching against the California Angels, Mr. Stottlemyre tore his rotator cuff. Over the winter, he was advised by the Yankees to rest until at least May 1. When they released him at the end of spring training, he was stunned. The move was made by general manager Gabe Paul, but Mr. Stottlemyre was convinced that Yankees owner George Steinbrenner had been behind it, and it left him embittered. Mel Stottlemyre retired with a record of 164-139 and an ERA of 2.97 before turning to a second career as a pitching coach. In March 1981, Mr. Stottlemyre's son Jason died of leukemia a few days after his 11th birthday. Mr. Stottlemyre left his post as a roving pitching instructor for the Mariners the next year to be with his family. 2 decades later, reflecting on the possibility of a connection between his multiple myeloma and his son's leukemia, Mr. Stottlemyre thought back to radiation treatments he had received on his shoulder from the Yankees team doctor in the late 1960s as a means of reducing calcification. A radiologist had advised him to stop the treatments because of potential health consequences, and he eventually did so despite what he said were reassurances from the Yankees medical staff that the radiation would not harm him. "I've become convinced it played a role in both of the diseases," Mr. Stottlemyre said of the radiation in his memoir, Pride and Pinstripes, 2007, written with John Harper. The medical care the Yankees provided was not up to the standards you'd expect in professional sports. After a break from baseball, he became the Mets pitching coach in 1984, Gooden's rookie season. He did not tinker with the mechanics of the immensely gifted Gooden, but counseled him on how to handle the spotlight and saw himself as something of a father figure. When the Mets defeated the Boston Red Sox in the 1986 World Series, Mr. Stottlemyre oversaw an outstanding pitching staff featuring Gooden, Bob Ojeda, Sid Fernandez, Ron Darling, Roger McDowell, and Jesse Orozco. Mr. Stottlemyre was fired at the end of the 1993 season and was the Houston Astros pitching coach for 2 seasons before being asked by Steinbrenner to return to the Yankees. He decided to accept the offer, joining the staff of the new Yankees manager, Joe Torre. The Yankees won the World Series in 1996, then captured consecutive championships from 1998 to 2000, the year Mr. Stottlemyre began treatments for multiple myeloma.